Welcome into another edition of the Five Reasons Podcast. My name is Chris Whittingham, joined as always by Ethan Skolnick. You can find all the work that we're doing here in the Five Reasons Sports Network at our website, fivereasonsports.com, where you have written content. You can see all of our podcasts as well, 15 in the network covering all the major professional and college sports teams that you care about. And today we're going to be covering the Miami Marlins, so we should highlight that we are covering the Miami Marlins with our Swings and Mishes podcast, certainly covering their poor play at the moment, winning only about 25% of their games, have been shut out, I believe, 9 times on the year. But we're actually here to talk about the bright spot for the Miami Marlins this year, which has broadly been their pitching, not being as bad as maybe the rest of the team would indicate, but also, more specifically, their ace. Their ace has been Caleb Smith. He has been dubbed Dr. K by some, and he is a player that was not really expected to be at this level of pitching. He's 27 years old, made his major league debut at 25, going through the Yankees and Cubs organizations. Was not really one of the top prospects in Baseball America or by any of the magazines, and yet here we are in 2019 after he was a 16th round draft pick and gone through the minor leagues. He is a top pitcher, the ace, undeniably, and not just an ace in the sense of he's their best pitcher on a bad team. No, he is an ace by any acceptable standard, ERA, fielding independent pitching, whip, however it is you associate ace-level pitching. Caleb Smith meets those standards. He's been terrific for the Miami Marlins this year. So we had the chance to get down to Marlins Park and talk with the ace of the staff, Caleb Smith. But first, let's hear a word from one of our sponsors. We'll get back to today's episode in a second, but first I want to tell you about one of our new sponsors here in the Five Reasons Sports Network, and that is the attorneys at Seltzer Mayberg. Find them at onecalllegal.com. That's O-N-E, calllegal.com, or actually call 855-5000-LAW, L-A-W. They handle cases including but not limited to car accidents, slip and falls, and any personal injury matters. Additionally, if you mention Five Reasons, they will handle your traffic ticket for $44.99 with a new 15,000 square foot office opening on I-95 in North Miami. They will handle cases all over South Florida. Call now with 24/7 service for a free consultation, onecalllegal.com or 855-5000-LAW. The attorneys at Seltzer Mayberg, a proud sponsor of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Joined now by the Miami Marlins ace, Caleb Smith, who's kind of joining us here on the podcast, having a tremendous season. Caleb, we appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we wanted to start just in general with a big picture look of how this has happened for you. I mean, you're a player that came up into the majors at age 25, and now at 27, you're dominating right now. You're pitching incredibly well. What for you has been the biggest force around your turnaround or your breakthrough or whatever it is you want to call it?
Just filling up the zone, really, throwing all my pitches for strikes. Whenever I first got here, they pointed out to me. I was walking a lot of people, and they pointed out that my stuff plays in the zone. I get a lot of swing and misses, so I was kind of nibbling at the strike zone, not wanting to get hit hard, and that's ultimately been the key, is attacking the strike zone and let my pitches work for me.
When you were with the Cubs and the Yankees, when they were sort of evaluating where you were as a pitcher, is that ever something that was suggested to you? Was it ever something that you kind of noticed that your approach in that maybe your stuff was good enough, but your approach to how you went about it had to change a little bit?
Well, I've never really been that type of pitcher to like work around the strike zone. In the minor leagues, I've always gone right after guys, and I kind of got away from that whenever I got called up. I guess it was just nerves or something, but I'm not sure. But I'm starting to get back to where I was.
And as far as the repertoire of pitches that you developed, take us through that a little bit from growing up. I know born in Texas, but kind of as you were sort of developing sort of the way you wanted to attack hitters, tell us sort of about how all of your different pitches kind of came to be.
Well, I've always thought of myself as like a power pitcher, and even like in high school and college. I mean, I've never really had the plus velocity, but I've always known that hitters don't see my fastball very well, so that's always helped me. And I was always a fastball changeup guy. My changeup was always my best secondary pitch. It had a lot of bottom to it. a lot of fade, and I never really had a breaking ball until I guess I went to the Cubs in the Rule 5 draft. They started working with me on that, and it really came along for me. And that I stopped throwing my changeup as much to work on my slider, and that really took over my best off-speed pitch.
And now you're such a strikeout pitcher. I mean, you get so many, and I believe some fans are calling you Dr. K. And in terms of not having that high speed velocity, you mentioned the inability to see the fastballs, but in terms of being a strikeout pitcher without throwing 99, 100, which seems to be the way that most pitchers go about it now, how do you go about being a strikeout pitcher without really having that level of strength?
I don't know. It's just, I guess that my deception plays a lot into it, and I mean, I know that they don't really see my fastball well, like I was saying earlier, and I mean, I've never really been like a analytics thing, but I've heard that I have a pretty good spin rate and all that, so that helps out too, and I've always struggled to work down in the strike zone. I'm better at it now. I can go down whenever I want. But I've always noticed that whenever I elevate my fastball, like in the strike zone, hitters don't hit it that much. So that's what works for me now is I try to elevate my fastball and they swing through it.
So that element of deception is interesting because you're saying that it's difficult to see. To the naked eye, me watching baseball, I don't know how that happens or what in your delivery. How do you go about creating that deception, and and how does that affect hitters?
Honestly, I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know what I do to put the deception in there, but the hitters tell me whenever I talk to them, they just say, I don't see your fastball until it's right on me. Like I just can't see it. They can't see. They can't pick up spin well. I don't know what it is.
Did you ever? I mean, you weren't that old before you got to the majors, like Chris mentioned, 25. But was there ever a moment when you started to think to yourself, I don't know if it's going to happen for me the way that I expected it to happen?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it ever happens the way people expect it to happen. I had my son. My son's 2.5. Right when he was born, I was in Double-A with the Trenton Thunder and with the Yankees organization, and right whenever I had him, I was like, all right, this is gonna be my last year. I mean, because minor leagues, you make $10,000. That's not enough to support a family. And fortunately for me, I was able to get Rule 5 that year, so that got me a little bit more money and allowed me to play a little bit longer. So, I mean, if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be here today.
So how were you? Okay, so you're making $10,000 in the minor leagues in Trenton, which I've been to that stadium in Trenton. It's not New York City, but it's not the cheapest place to live. So how are you living? Where are you going? You going to Applebee's every night? Like, what's the? I mean,
no. I mean, we lived in like a 2-bedroom apartment with like 5 people. Like we had 3 people in the living room, and we all slept on blow-up mattresses. I mean, it was rough, but I mean, it was fun. It was a good experience. I wouldn't want to go back to that, but I mean, I would take food home from the field, and that would be my dinner and all that. So and breakfast. So.
And fed everybody else, basically. So your son, you said your son was 2.5 at the time.
No, he's 2.5
2.5
now.
Okay, yeah. So he just was born. So
he was just born. Yeah.
So he's in the crib in the living room. He's in. You said you had a 2-2. He's just what's he there?
Whenever he was first born, him, my son, and my girlfriend stayed back in Texas for the rest of that season. So I mean and so they weren't with me in Trenton at that time. But whenever I got Rule 5 and went to the Cubs, they went with me. And, I mean, I was getting big league meal money then, so that helped out a lot.
And in terms of other life in the minor league things, you mentioned the 2-2, but you hear great stories, and I've read a book about, minor league baseball anecdotes. Do you have one or two that you remember that life that maybe you said, it was fun, but I don't know if I necessarily want to be back there again?
I mean, I got plenty of stories. I don't know if any are appropriate to tell.
It's a podcast. So. You can tell whatever you want.
I mean, I got so many. I can't even think one off the top of my head. Let's see. I think it was. I was in Trenton. No, it was Charleston, the low A team. We went out I was starting the night before. Probably shouldn't have done this, but we went out and had a little too much fun, and I missed the bus to go to Hickory that day, and I was starting that day, so I had to drive. I think it was like 6 hours. Like, I had to take my
truck.
Like
scramble like at Hertz or something like that. And,
like it was bad. It was a bad deal. So I got in trouble. Luckily, I went out and I think I threw like 7 innings, maybe 1 run. I did pretty good, so they weren't that mad after that.
so that's the way to erase everything, is to go for 1 run in 7 innings. Hold on, I just want to say we'll just stop. So one of the things that we heard, again, I mentioned that Craig Mish is in our network, so I asked him for a couple of tidbits he might be able to share about you. One thing that he said is that you kind of work yourself into a little bit of a frenzy before you go to the mound. Is that right? You get kind of mad? You put yourself in a different space? How does that work?
Honestly, I drink a lot of Red Bull and pre-workout, but I mean, I try to stay relaxed throughout the day, and then like whenever I step on the mound, it's all business. I'm going out there and I'm trying to win battles, and I'm trying to beat everybody. I'm literally trying to strike out everybody.
Is that approach that you're trying to strike out everybody? Because sometimes, I mean, we've had a lot of power pitchers here, and we were talking about some beforehand. Some guys have come through here like Matt Lidstrom. They threw 101 miles an hour or whatever, and they went out with the approach of trying to strike out everybody. And sometimes they were told, don't go out with that approach, because if you try to take that approach, then sometimes that backfires on you a little bit. But that is the mindset that you have. It's not necessarily, okay, maybe we've got a runner on first and we want to hit the ball to the right side and pick up 2. I mean, is every batter you're thinking strike this guy out?
I mean, every batter I'm thinking strike this guy out. I mean, if I get a ground ball double play, there's a runner on first. I get a ground double play, like I'm fine with that. But I mean, if I have a guy with 2 strikes and I don't punch his ticket, I'm pretty upset with myself.
So we talked about the less glamorous moments. Do you have 1 or 2 that you remember about glamorous moments, or major league debut, first time pitching in Yankee Stadium or Wrigley, or these sort of hallowed grounds? Do you have 1 or 2 that maybe when grandkids eventually come, you'll be telling about those times and those memories?
I think I have maybe a least glamorous moment. My first start in Yankee Stadium. I mean, it was packed house, and I think the first batter of the game, I gave up a home or 2, and like the whole stadium just started booing me, and it was the worst. It was the worst feeling in the world. Yeah. But I mean that's Yankees fans, so I mean that's right. What they do.
Yeah. It's almost a badge of honor at that point.
They love you when you're doing good, and they hate you when you're doing bad. So,
what was your reaction to the trade? What I mean, you find Derek Jeter's here, and it's not a trade that got a lot of headlines. There was some international money involved. It was not the Yelich trade. It was not the Stanton trade. It was not one of the ones that got sort of all the attention down here. How did you find out? What did you think? When did you talk to Derek? How did all that kind of play out?
Well, Cashman called me whenever it happened. I kind of expected it, because I wasn't. I thought I was either going to get DFA'd or traded, honestly, because I mean I wasn't really a high prospect for them. I didn't feel like I was somebody that they had in their plans to keep around. And I'm sorry, that's kind of throwing me off. I wasn't somebody that I thought they had in their plans to keep around. So I kind of figured it was coming. But when they called me and told me, I knew it was a great opportunity for me, and I knew I would have a legitimate opportunity to thrive in the big leagues.
How much of that hierarchy exists in the minor leagues, where it's like the fancied prospects get either preferential treatment, or maybe the players that don't come in with first round pedigree or didn't come in a major trade aren't thought of in the same way, or almost not even judged on the merits of their performances?
I feel like that happens a lot, honestly. Higher prospects, I mean, obviously they have a lot more money invested into them, so they I guess have the right to get more opportunities than you, because they're more of an investment than the lower draft picks and the guys that got $1,000 or however much in the draft. So I mean, I feel like that plays a lot into it, and I feel like I was kind of overlooked with the Yankees, so it was super disappointing.
And now that you're a major league pitcher, not just a major league pitcher, but I mean you're the ace of this team. You're the guy that goes out every 5 days, and there's an expectation that you're going to pitch well. How has your mentality shifted? And obviously you try and strike everyone out, so that's pretty clear. But in terms of having a little bit of that, I don't want to say burden, but that expectation now that you're going to be a strong major league pitcher every time you step on the mound.
I mean, I think that's everybody's goal as a starting pitcher to be the ace of the team. I mean, you don't want to come to a rotation and be like the third, fourth, or fifth guy. And I mean, it's not a knock on the third, fourth, or fifth guy, but everybody that's in the rotation wants to be the ace. And I mean, I've just been fortunate enough to go out there and put a string of good games together.
You don't, I mean, it's obvious you haven't had a ton of run support this year. Obviously teams struggle to score and still trying to find their way. Does that change your approach as a pitcher? Again, we get back to trying to strike everybody out. But I mean, you go to the mound probably knowing you may not get the runs that say they may get in Boston or some other places around them, or LA or some other places around the majors. Do you feel like, I mean, I'm going back to like yesterday, like you give, early on, gave a couple. Do you feel, does that put any kind of a stress on you? Do you have to approach it differently when you don't know how many you're going to get in the bank?
No, it honestly doesn't affect me that much because I'm going out there. Every time I step on that mound, my expectation is to go 9 innings, no runs. Like I expect to throw zeros up there. I hold myself to a very high standard, and I think you have to if you want to be great at this game. And I mean, it doesn't, like I've said this before, it doesn't matter to me if we're up by 10 runs or down by 10 runs. I'm going out there and I'm having the same mentality right when I step on the mound. I'm not giving it to anybody, and I'm going right after you.
Give me an occasion, because it sounds like you do hold yourself to that standard, and sometimes people hold themselves to that standard. It's hard for them to be satisfied with themselves. Give me an example of a time you've pitched in the past. I know you had the injury last year and have had to come back from it, but in the past year plus with the Marlins, that you were happy. You came out of a game and you're like, that is what I want. I did what I set out to do today. Do you ever get to that point?
I haven't yet. Really? I haven't gotten to that point yet.
It's not a perfect game yet, so how could he?
I mean, when I go a complete game with no runs, I'll be happy.
But that doesn't even happen anymore in Major League Baseball. Like, even if you were rolling to that degree, I mean, if you had 101 pitches, you wouldn't even be afforded the opportunity.
I think they'll give me the chance eventually if my pitch count. If I keep my pitch count down, and I think they'll give me the opportunity to do that. You
mentioned the analytics and the spin rates and things like that. How much do you incorporate, detailed scouting reports, not just, it doesn't hit high and outside, but film review? I mean, there's so much information that is available to every Major League Baseball player now. How much information do you incorporate into your approach?
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there, so I feel like if you go, there's no excuse for you to go into a game and not be prepared. Mm-hmm. There's so much information on everybody. So what my thing is, I try to find a similar left-handed pitcher like me, and then I go back and look at their outing against that team, and I go through there and see what they're swinging at, what their tendencies are, first pitch swinging, who's chasing what, and I mean that's basically what I look for.
All right, so what nickname do you want? Because obviously your profile is going to increase here. And I don't know how comfortable you are with that. I don't know if you're someone who is going to be comfortable getting recognized with a certain nickname everywhere you go. Are you, I guess? Do you want that? Do you want that kind of thing?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, Dr. K is cool.
So you'll take it. All right, well, that was – have you asked Dwight Gooden on that one yet? Because you got to go back a little ways. That's before your time. You guys are too young for me. All right, Caleb Smith, we really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck to you this season, and hopefully we get a chance to do it again.
Thanks for having me.
We'll get back to today's episode of the 5 Reasons Podcast in a second, but first I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, and that is Doral Toyota. Doral Toyota, where you can find all your favorite Toyota models, whether you're looking for a new, used, or certified pre-owned vehicle. Doral Toyota is located at 9775 Northwest 12th Street, just a few blocks from International and Dolphin Malls. I've been there before. It is a fantastic location. Experience the Doral difference, which means 4 years complimentary maintenance and roadside assistance on all new vehicles. In-house financing is available for credit-related issues. If you mention 5 Reasons when you call 305-680-1129 or come in the dealership, you will work with a dedicated manager, not a salesman. Unlike other dealers, Doral Toyota prides itself on an honest and transparent buying process. That's Doral Toyota, DoralToyota.com, or stop in at 9775 Northwest 12th Street. Vamos, let's go, Doral Toyota.
I want to tell you about a great new sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is ShipYourCarNow.com. These guys can move any car, boat, RV, motorcycle, or equipment anywhere you need worldwide. You have a business and need to ship freight or machinery? Call them. College moves, new car, used car, buying the toy you've looked at for a while? Call them. These guys can ship it all, so give them a call. Here's the number, 1-800-264-4644. That's 1-800-264-4644, or visit shipyourcarnow.com/5 Reasons. Also, make sure to mention 5 Reasons on the phone. I wish they'd had this when I was going to college. This would have been great for me. I needed to get my car down from Baltimore to Florida. I ended up taking the auto train. You don't want to take the auto train. Ship your car, fly. No job too big or too small. Ship Your Car Now moves it all.
So again, our thanks to Caleb Smith for joining us here on the podcast. If you want to check out our baseball coverage here in the 5 Reasons Sports Network, again, Swings and Misses is where you go, as well as our Spanish language coverage at Cinco Razones, where Alejandro Villegas, Ricardo Montes de Oca, and Leandro Soto have you covered in Spanish language. A lot on baseball, but plenty on other South Florida sports as well. They're also doing a lot of great work in Spanish in written form for our website, 5reasonsports.com. So check us out. Until next week, you've been listening to the 5 Reasons Sports Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the 5 Reasons Podcast. Thank you so much.